In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this cool gravity effect with Unity. Create a script called PSG effect. In order to pull objects toward the center of this game object, we need to create a variable called inward force, and create a list of rigid bodies so we can reference their components when they enter the trigger and force is being applied to them. To capture the trigger event, use the onTriggerEnter function and add any rigid bodies to the list that enter the trigger. With that new list, use fixedUpdate to add force to every rigid body. Find the direction of the object by normalizing the position of the object hitting the trigger and this object. Then add force to the rigid body, using direction multiplied by the negative amount of inward force. Then use the force mode to generate constant movement towards this game object's position. Going to the scene in game view, I created a sphere in the world, then added a collider, turning the trigger on. I added a rigid body to the sphere, turning gravity off and is-chematic on. Then I added the PSG effect script to it. I created a few capsules with rigid bodies on them, leaving gravity on, and give the sphere something to land on, like a plane. And also the sphere collider needs to be turned on. The rigid bodies should be pulled towards the sphere. Next, let's create a release all function. So what that'll do is the rigid bodies, as they're moving to the center of the object, after a certain amount of time, we want all those objects to be released with an amount of force. So each rigid body, as we loop through them, we're going to add explosive force to those rigid bodies, and we're going to need a few variables for that. We're going to use outward force, we're going to use the position of the object, outward radius, and a upwards modifier. And each one of these variables will be a float. The variables up top will be public, so we can modify them if needed in the inspector. And invoke the release all function after a certain amount of time. I'm going to set the release timer to 3 seconds. And let's turn the collider off once all objects have been released. So now after 3 seconds, all objects will get launched away from the center of the game object. You can tweak the upwards mobility and other public variables to fit your liking. To create the camera effect, we need to modify the field of view at runtime. Once the gravity effect has been completed, the camera's field of view reverts back to normal. We'll need to store the default field of view value and create a public value to store the field of view that the camera will animate to. And we want to create an enumerator that'll update the camera's field of view over time. Store the camera's field of view up top in a temp variable. While the current field of view is less than the max, start increasing with the variable we are going to mark as a public variable up top. reassign the camera's field of view to the new value. Once the enumerator has finished, we are going to reset the camera's field of view to normal. And call the release all function, removing the invoke. So the objects will be released after the camera's field of view has been maxed out. Play the scene again. The field of view updated way too fast. Let's adjust the values here. That was perfect. The asset I used to achieve the black hole gravity effect can be found here in the Unity Asset Store. The last part of this is using the prefab from this asset pack. Making this black hole prefab match the sphere collider of the parent. Let's look at the final result. And there you go. Hey everyone, thanks for watching the video. If you have any comments or questions, please post it down below in the description. Have a good one.